live. Hello, 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 hello. I am now live. Great. Can everybody hear me okay as you're logging on? I really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I completely appreciate you being on here tonight. As people start to log on, it's my first live. Yay, me! I'm so excited to just be on here tonight. I'm doing Instagram and Facebook at the same time. So hopefully we'll get some people to log in from both places. Hey, Jasmine, how are you, girl? You recovering okay? I have people coming on and saying hi and hey Star, hey Stephanie, hi everybody. Oh my gosh, you're coming in. Yay, I'm so excited, I'm so excited. So just giving people a few more minutes to log on and we'll do our very first Talk About It Tuesday because I'm so excited. Hey, Miss Jackson, how are you? Hey, Melinda on Facebook. Good to see you guys logging in. I'm so excited we're talking about tonight. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes. How's everybody's Tuesday been going so far? You guys been having a good day? I work today, so I'm a little no, I'm not tired. I'm super energized. I'm super excited. I'm super stoked because we're doing Talk About It Tuesday. Yay. And so, hey. And I've been wanting to do this for like a long time. And I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to go ahead and get on here and talk about it because for those of you who know me, most of you probably do. But in any case, I am Dr. Lori Johnson. I am a board certified OBGYN. I've been practicing now for really close to like 20 years. So it's, I've seen just about everything when it comes to women's health. Hey, Lydia. Hey, Charlotte. Hey, Tony. How are you? Hey, Holly. People are logging in, coming on. I'm so excited. Hey, Stacy. Hey, Monica. But as I was saying, I'm Dr. Lori Johnson. I am a board certified OBGYN. And I have been practicing for about 20 years. And so one thing that I've learned and one thing that I know about women and women's health is that there's just so much that most women don't know. Most of us started getting our education on being a woman from like our aunties and our grandmas. And hey, Mary, how you doing, Mary? Anyway, aunties and our grandmoms from years ago when some of them was old wives' tales and stuff like that. And then now we have Google. So half of my patients, when they come in to see me, they're like on Google and they're like looking at stuff and they're like totally wrong. And I've had people like really, hey, Dr. Joshi, how are you? Hey, Aisha, how are you? People come in and they think they're going to die. Because if you put symptoms in symptom checker, they're probably going to tell you like you're going to die, you know, like tomorrow. And you're like, oh my God, I got to cancel Christmas. It's over. And most of the time it's wrong because a lot of the stuff on the internet, hey, Adria, hey, David, hey, Brenda, most stuff on the internet is written by people just like you who don't necessarily have the full knowledge to know what's really going on. And so I wanted to start coming on here, and every week I'm going to do just a little something different, talk about a different topic, stuff that I see in my office every single day, and going to be able to come on and tell you guys about it, kind of give you what it is and what it isn't. There's huge topics. And like I said, I've been doing this for like 20 years. So I've seen a lot of things. So we had been posting, hey cousin, we have been posting for a while to see if anyone's going to give me any an idea or anything like that if they wanted to. And they were like, no one really wrote in. So I thought that I would basically just pick a topic myself. And I'm going to pick a topic really, and this is the truth. I tell you, there's not a day that goes by in my office where somebody doesn't call in thinking they have like a yeast infection. Like every single day. They either come in or they're calling in or they're like, oh, it's a yeast infection, it's a yeast infection. And man, all you guys are doing is making monostat like billions of dollars because a lot of times what we're treating as yeast it's not that. It's other stuff. And so we're doing a lot of my mom, a lot of treatment of stuff that's just not there. And so this tonight's topic is going to be about like your vagina. So any people have hang-ups about the word vagina, like I do vaginas all day every day, so I'm going to say vagina, and I'm talking about vaginitis. So vagina-itis, inflammation of the vagina, like bacterial vaginosis, but yeast infections are like the number one call we get. Everyone always thinks they have a yeast. And so we're going to just break down a little bit what yeast is, what it isn't, what it could be, and what you should be doing if you think you really have one. And then to look for the symptoms that just aren't it. So first of all, a yeast infection is not like an infection. You don't really just catch it. You can't get it from anywhere. It usually comes because the good bacteria that keep your vagina in balance aren't working properly, and the yeast that's always there have a chance to overgrow. So the primary time you might get a yeast infection is if you've been on like antibiotics. So like it's cold and flu season, we're on amoxicillin or ampicillin or zithromax or whatever, or you have a urinary tract infection, or you have like any kind of infection and you're taking antibiotics on a regular basis, the antibiotics don't know whether or not to kill just the bad bacteria or all the bacteria, so they kill all of it. And when they kill all the bacteria, then the yeast get a chance to overgrow and to flourish, and then you get like a yeast infection. And you know it's yeast because your vagina just starts itching. Like we at our office, if I give somebody an antibiotic for a urinary tract infection, I just go ahead and give them a diflucan as well, because pretty much they're gonna get a yeast infection after they finish their antibiotics, because that's just kind of how it works. So anyway, that's what happens. Now, the only times you would get a yeast infection when you don't have antibiotics is probably if you have something else going on with your physical health. So for instance, like our diabetic patients will tend to have a lot of yeast infections. If their sugars aren't in control, yeast really, really like sugar. And so the yeast will grow a lot in a sugary environment. If you're diabetic, you can be prone to yeast infections. If you have like steroids, so if you have steroids like you're taking prednisone for like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or something like that, those things will compromise your immune system and you could get like a yeast infection. Or you have another autoimmune disease or an immune disease like cancer or HIV, or like if you're on like a transplant medicine or something like that, those medicines will also compromise your immune system, and then you can get yeast or be prone to yeast infections like that. Okay, so those are the main things that you should get a yeast infection from. Like, you shouldn't get a yeast infection every month. I've had patients come and be like, I get a yeast infection every month. And I'm like, no, there's something wrong with you, because you should not get a yeast infection every single month. You might get some other kind of infection, but you really shouldn't get yeast if you're not like diabetic, or you're not on antibiotics, or if you're not like on steroids or something like that. You should not get a yeast infection, okay? So like I said, yeast infections are going to basically itch. It's going to be like really itchy, really irritated, and there are going to be some discharge, and it's going to be like a chunky, thick, like cottage cheese or feta cheese, like a chunky kind of a discharge. Now, here's the thing. It does not have a smell. If it smells, it's not yeast. It's just not. The smell, that yucky odor, no, that's not yeast. That's usually something else. And so if you have, if it's a yeast infection, then you shouldn't have an odor, okay? So again, antibiotics, steroids, diabetes, immune diseases, no smell, right? Chunky discharge, and itching. Okay, so if those are the main things that you want to look for when you're thinking about yeast. So, well, Dr. Lori, if it's not that, then, well, what is it? If it's not going to be yeast, and if it's not that, well, that's it's possible. If a question, if you have intercourse with someone, could they give you a yeast infection? Well, if there is, in some instances, you can get yeast from your partner. Typically, it would be because he's either diabetic, or he has a very high sugar content in his body, or a high yeast content in his body. That's really, really rare, though. And again, you shouldn't get one every time you have intercourse or anything like that. And remember, like I said, it doesn't have an odor, doesn't have a smell, anything like that. So basically, it's just a non-smelling, but it's very, very irritating and very, very itchy. Okay, so what I see a lot of people thinking a yeast infection is actually bacterial vaginosis, or BV, right? So BV is another it's a term given to a couple of different bacterial overgrowths. Okay, and BV is caused by about 5 or 6 different bacteria. You have to get cultured for them to get rid of them, and then you can also that will definitely give you a bad discharge and a bad smell, right? Now, a lot of time, and it may cause you some irritation, but definitely the discharge and definitely the smell. Someone said, can you get yeast from an uncircumcised partner? You get a lot of things from an uncircumcised partner if he's not clean, if he's not cleaning underneath the foreskin well. The foreskin has, uncircumcised foreskin has like a little pouch, and there's like a reservoir for bacteria to kind of hang out. So that's a little bit of a different scenario, but it can definitely happen if your partner is uncircumcised. But again, you can also get a lot of issues with BV, bacterial vaginosis, right? So BV causes a lot of irritation. It causes a lot of discharge with a bad odor in it, and it's treated by certain medications called Flagyl, metronidazole, clindamycin. Those things are what will take care of BV. Now, BV is super easy to get. Hey, Glenda. Hey, Corlette. Super easy to get, and it really comes from an internal imbalance in you. So that's why when you're talking about infections, the doctor says, well, did you change your underwear? Did you change your laundry detergent? Did you change your soap? Because all those things have acid components to it. And acid, those bacteria that cause BV really like acidic environments. And so in the acidic environment, they grow and they thrive, and then they cause all of that discharge and bad smell. So again, that's BV. Yeast is something completely different. Now with BV, you can most definitely get that from like taking a tub bath. If you let water get inside of you a little bit, you can get it sometimes from if your partner like didn't wash before intercourse, and you can get it if your body pH is a little too acidic. A few years ago, anecdotally, when everybody was doing like apple cider vinegar, like it was like the thing, like take it for this and take it for that, and it's great for your health. Man, BV was through the roof. And because vinegar is pure acid, so when you're drinking pure acid, even though it has good benefits for you, if you're not drinking enough water with the acid, it will definitely throw your pH to the acidic point and definitely make the BV kind of thrive. So we were seeing tons of people having like BV and stuff with the whole like apple cider vinegar craze. And for a while, I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I was like, why all this happening? And then I was like, the vinegar. And as soon as we got them off of the vinegar or decreased the vinegar, a lot of the BV stopped occurring. So you have to be really careful with BV, what you're putting in your body, and making sure you're not super acidic. They have, if you're prone to BV, alkaline water. They sell it in a lot of stores. You can drink that as opposed to regular tap water. And then the alkaline water will help kind of bring you back to the center and not let those bacteria overgrow so much, okay? Another thing that we see frequently that's confused for a yeast infection along the same lines of BV is trichomonas, which is an STD, right? I'll talk about STDs later. It's like that's a whole thing. It's about STDs, but STDs, basically, trichomonas mimics the signs and symptoms of BV, but is actually an STD. It gives you a really bad smell and discharge and irritation. Again, people think it's yeast. They go get a monostat or whatever, and really, it's actually just an STD that both you and your partner like have to be treated for. Okay, so that can also mimic yeast. And then finally, like one of the things we kind of we see it a good amount of time. The herpes virus can actually mimic a yeast infection. And unfortunately, there's a lot of ladies walking around with like herpes and stuff and not knowing it, thinking it's yeast. I know I personally have had quite a few patients come in and they kind of say, oh, I always get yeast infections and I always have yeast infections, I always have yeast infections. And I'm like, okay. And they'll tell me their symptoms and I'm like, that may not be yeast. It sounds like it may be something else. And then we'll do usually a blood test to find out if it's actually herpes or not. Now, the tricky thing with herpes virus is that herpes, it's a virus. So once you get it in your body, it stays in your body like forever. Like it's always there with you, right? And then you have these things called outbreaks. So the outbreaks may not be super severe. They may be like limited, maybe 7 days, maybe 10 days at the most. And that's really about it, right? But then with the herpes outbreak, you get it. Your vagina's a little irritated, a little itchy. You think it's yeast. So you go to the store, buy like the 3-day monostat or whatever, do like a couple of days of the monostat, and then by like day 7, day 8, it feels better. Well, and you think that you've treated a yeast infection and gotten rid of it, but in actuality, herpes, if you don't do anything to it at all, if it's a recurrent outbreak, it will last about 7 to 10 days and it'll go away all by itself. So people don't think often that they have anything more than that, but sometimes it is HSV. So if you ever have a scenario where you do have what you think are frequent yeast infections or frequent irritations and stuff like that, you really need to make sure you go in and get not just a vaginal swab, but a blood test to see if you've ever been exposed to the herpes virus, because it could be that and you just not know it. I'm gonna have a question on Instagram: can a yeast infection make your urine cloudy? Yes, sometimes it can. Because the thickness of the discharge in that can make the urine appear to be very cloudy, and that can be a problem. But again, it usually won't be like a burning when you urinate, but just that constant itching. But it can make your urine cloudy. As I was saying with the HSV virus, the herpes virus, sometimes it does mimic yeast, and sometimes we do see people having these issues and not have and not get treated for it, and it can go on for a long time and we just don't know it. So for my older ladies, sometimes they come in thinking they have yeast infections too, and really that's something that comes just with the menopause. So sometimes in menopause, many times in menopause, after the hormones go low and the blood flow kind of leaves that area, you can most definitely have situations where you are itching and dry and you think it's a yeast. In actuality, it's something called atrophic vaginitis, which is just not just older person, but basically there's a lack of estrogen to the area, and the lack of estrogen makes the skin dry out, and it causes a lot of itching, right? So even my older ladies will go and they'll be buying monostat and doing all this stuff and using it and all that, and it's not getting any better. And then sometimes they come in and they see me and they're like, oh, I'm having these yeast infections, and it's really not yeast. It's just the dryness that comes as a part of natural menopause. And then there are different medications to treat that, as opposed to just using monostat all the time, because monostat is kind of it's going to be like a okay kind of a thing that you can use to get rid of it, but it's not going to really get rid of it like it's supposed to. And if you've been buying Monistat and it's not going away, then it's probably really just not yeast that we're talking about. So we're talking about other kinds of vaginitis. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to say about the whole yeast infection situation is just like anything, you can overuse the Monistat. You don't have to buy that all the time. And really, the pill, the diflucan, is a better pill. Now, of course, it's not commercially available. I mean, it's not available over the counter. You can't just go get a diflucan, but go in and see your provider, your doctor, and get a test for it. And, I would encourage you, if you feel like you're always getting yeast or you always have it, you really need to look into it a little bit further, because it's probably just not that. It's probably some other stuff that's going on, and you have to kind of figure out what that is with your doctor and get it treated. You can never ever drink enough water. Water flushes all the stuff out of your body. It helps with chronic yeast. It helps with BV and other bacteria. And I can't say enough good things about water. And then watching your sugar intake, even if you're not diabetic. Yes, some of us can diet cause yeast. Yes, it can. Sugar, high sugar volumes, lots of sugar in your diet. People eat candy all the time. High sweet diet can most definitely cause some yeast infections to go on. Can tight clothing cause yeast infection? No, not actual yeast. Tight clothing. So the question is, can tight clothing cause a yeast infection? And tight clothing can cause your vagina to get irritated because it is in such a close quarters and it is in such a tight space. But to actually give you a yeast infection, no, not really. It can cause your vagina to be irritated, though. That is kind of like a common thing, like your clothes so tight you're going to get a yeast infection. Not really. It's kind of a funny thing to say, but it can cause some vaginal irritation and not letting the vaginal area breathe like it's supposed to, not letting the vagina, get the air as it's supposed to. And really, a lot of times the silky underwear and that can also cause irritation. That's why I say try to wear cotton, because cotton breathes. The vagina is a warm, moist environment. So any bacteria like warm, moist environment. And so you get bacteria, it's warm, there's no air, it's tight. You can get other infections, but not typically just yeast, because the other bacteria have to die or be impaired in order for the yeast to kind of overgrow. Okay, so I think that's about. I don't want to belabor you guys too long. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I didn't want to talk super long tonight because I didn't know if we were going to get a lot of people online or not. So I didn't have a whole lot to say. But next Tuesday, I'll be back at 9 o'clock and we will talk again. We'll have a different topic. If you have topics you want to hear, you can either DM me on Instagram, you can email me, drloriJ@gmail.com, drloriJ@gmail.com. And I can go through your topics. I did see a question that came up on my Instagram feed. I definitely saw you, and I want you to email me. That sounds like some more of a private question, and I wanted to speak to you. That was from Always Songbird. I saw your question. That's a little more private, and I wanted to answer that kind of one-on-one if that's okay with you. So I wanted you to know that I definitely saw your question. But you guys can email me. You can let me know if you have any ideas, any topics. I will be talking about menopause. I think I'm about to have a hot flash anyway. But we'll talk about different things every week. Guys, tune in. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I totally appreciate you coming in, tuning in. We're going to post this on my YouTube, and I'll save it both on Facebook and Instagram for you to look at it for later use. And I completely appreciate you coming in. And that's all I have for tonight. So remember, guys, yeast infections are not always yeast, but when they are, they don't smell and they really itch. And I'll tell you guys next week on Talk About It Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Bye.